For as long as we've existed, there's been light. The sun by day, the moon by night. But God made a promise to all mankind. A greater light would come. The hue of galaxies diverse, lit with supernova burst, there is long existed light across the universe. But a greater light would come. Isaiah spoke the Father's plan on those living in the land of darkness. Hope shall descend. The greatest light would come. Then beneath the Christmas star it came. This blazing light of God was named Jesus. Heavenly hosts proclaim, the greatest light has come. Emmanuel, our God with us, with endless power and fire of love, of equal brilliance there is none. The greatest light has come. This light unlike any other, sinners saved by mercy's cover, turning enemies into brothers. The greatest light has come. A light that wakes the sleeping nations, draws the billions to salvation. Light of Christ, our firm foundation. The greatest light is come. In this light, the blind are seeing. In this light is life's true meaning. Those once dead, alive and singing. The greatest light is come.
So it's Christmas time, and I absolutely love Christmas. I love Christmas movies. I love the TV specials. I love Christmas music. I love the Christmas decorations, and I love Christmas lights. This time of year, our family drives around, and we make sure that at least one person in the car points out where the Christmas lights are in all directions so that we can see the Christmas lights, because we love Christmas lights. The lights of Christmas have just this incredible ability to kind of draw you in, and this warm glow about them that makes you, at least me anyway, feel welcome. And so this month we are doing a real short series about the lights of Christmas. And tonight we're going to talk about we're going to jump into the book of Matthew. We're going to talk about the star that led the Magi, or the wise men, to Jesus. And in Matthew chapter 2, starting in verse 1 and 2, it says this: After Jesus was born in Bethlehem, in the territory of Judea, during the rule of King Herod, Magi came from the east to Jerusalem. They asked, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We have seen his star in the east, and we've come to honor him." Now let's stop right there, because I want to explain a few different elements of this story, because when we understand the different elements of the story, it gives a depth of meaning to the story that can help us grasp what this story is all about. And so the first thing I want to talk about are these Magi. What in the world are Magi? It's not a word that we hear a whole lot. And if you go back to the original language, which I don't do this super often, but if you go back to the original language, the word Magi meant this. Are you ready? It meant magician, sorcerer, or someone that was wise in interpreting dreams or interpreting the stars. And so think of, if you have heard of astrology, where like you have a sign and you look at that sign and it gives you what your day is supposed to be like. These were the people, magicians, sorcerers, and astrologers, that were coming to see Jesus. Now, you may be thinking what I thought when I realized this was the group of people that were coming to see Jesus. This group doesn't seem like your stereotypical Christian group of people that would come to celebrate Jesus. Like we often hear, don't mess around with sorcerers, like don't dabble in astrology. But these were the guys that saw this star and decided that means something. And that means that the new king is born, and we are going to go worship him. And so keep this in mind, this group of people. We will come back to them and their importance later tonight. But I just want to point out that this was the group that was coming to worship Jesus. And then let's talk about this star. It says, we saw this star that appeared in the east, and we've come to worship him. Now, this idea of it appearing in the east, or we saw his star in the east, is not necessarily the best translation. The best translation is we saw a star at its rising. This was a new thing in the sky that just appeared. And these guys were astrologers. They studied the stars, and so they recognized this is a new thing. Now, astronomers, which are different than astrologers, astronomers who also study the stars and like when they orbit the earth and all that stuff, have tried to figure out, historically speaking, what this star actually was. And they can use that to prove Jesus' birth and to prove the timeline and to prove that Jesus was historically born when he said he was born. So here's a few things that the star could have possibly been. It could have been the alignment of Jupiter and Venus. When these two planets align, they come together to form one brighter star in the sky. Could have been the alignment of Jupiter and Venus. All of these that we're going to talk about happened somewhere in the vicinity of Jesus' birth. It could have also been Halley's Comet. Halley's Comet is a comet that shows up around every 76 years. The next time it's going to show up is in 2061, and maybe you'll get a chance to see it. But it could have been Halley's Comet. It also could have been a supernova or a birth of a star. The supernova is like a once-in-a-lifetime thing. It's one of those things that if you see it with your naked eye, you are one of the lucky few that will ever get to see it. This was the last one. It was like in 1987 or something. And so that's a possibility as well. Or they think it could have been a miracle from God to lead the way. Now, we have no perfect conclusions for what the star was, but we know that there was a light that showed up in the sky, and these magi decided to follow the light to worship Jesus. So, you have this group of sorcerers, magicians, and astrologers that see a light in the sky, that recognize that that light represents this King of the Jews, Jesus, that has been talked about for generations and generations and generations. And they decide, we are going to go worship him. Now, this is where the story gets interesting. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to search for something. When I was, I know it's football season right now, exciting stuff. When I was in college, I lived in Cincinnati, and the Bengals were doing really good that year. First time in like decades they had done really good. And so this local radio station hid footballs all over the city of Cincinnati, and my friend and I realized that we knew the vicinity of where one of those footballs was. And so we decided we are going to go find this football. If you found the football, you won a prize and a chance to win tickets to the Super Bowl. And so we went out late at night because that's when we put all the clues together, and we went out and we searched for this football, and we realized it was probably in this creek area just off the road. And so we walked up and down this creek, and we finally gave up. We couldn't find it, and we waited for the next clue the next day. And they gave another clue, and it took us right back to the same area. And so we again went and looked, and we looked in like a different spot of the general vicinity, but we still couldn't find it. And then they gave another clue, and it was like still right there, like we knew where it was. And we searched, and we searched, and we searched, and we searched. And finally we see a guy walk out of the creek that we were just in the night before, holding the football in the air. And we were like, no! Have you ever been on the hunt for something and you're like, if I can just find this one thing, it is going to be epic. It is going to be absolutely incredible. Like, I imagine that's what these magi were feeling in this moment. Like, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This is going to be absolutely incredible. And so they follow this star all the way to Jerusalem. And when they get to Jerusalem, they talk to this king that was king of Jerusalem at the time. His name was King Herod. And they say, hey, we're on the hunt. This star showed up. This new baby is born. He's going to be the king of the Jews. It's something they've talked about for centuries. This is going to be awesome. And King Herod reminds me of another Christmas figure. King Herod reminds me of the Grinch. Because you see, King Herod decided that he was going to pretend to celebrate the birth of Jesus. And he goes to these magi and he says, listen, when did this star appear? Tell me what you know about it. Let's go find him. I want to honor him. I want to celebrate him. And just like the Grinch dressed up in all of his Christmas garb to burn Christmas to the ground and steal everything, Herod was on the hunt to go after Jesus and burn everything to the ground that he came to accomplish. And the wise men did go and find Jesus. In Matthew chapter 2, verses 9 through 12, it says this. When they heard the king, they went, and look, the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stood over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with Mary, his mother. Falling to their knees, they honored him. Then they opened their treasure chests and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Because they were warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they went back to their own country by another route. So this group of sorcerers, magicians, and astrologers follows this star, finds what they're looking for. I picture them getting to this house and being like, yes, we're here, we did it. And then they just fall down and worship Jesus. And then knowing that Herod was in fact the Grinch, they decide, we're not going back there, and they return home a different way. So here's my question. After all of that, here's my question. What's the point of this story? I mean, it's a good story. It's a great story to tell. But what's the point of this story? Now, we could say, well, the point of the story is Jesus' birth. And a lot of times we go that direction and we say, man, Jesus is the reason for the season. Christmas is all about Jesus. And I totally agree with those statements. But here's the thing. A lot of times we stop there. And we read the birth story of Jesus. And we do all the celebrations. And we say, Jesus is the reason. And we keep it in this vague area where we celebrate Jesus, but it's very surface level. And if we really dug a little deeper into what the story was truly about and what it meant for us as individuals, it might begin to impact our hearts and our lives. And so we like to keep things safe. And we say, well, this story is all about Jesus. And we go about our day. What if it's about Jesus and how he impacts our lives? Now, again, we do things like, again, keep it kind of safe. And we say, well, let's focus in on the star. There's nothing wrong with focusing on the star. It can add a whole lot of depth to the story when we understand what it was, what it meant, and where it led. But we say, let's focus on the star. Let's figure out what the star was. Let's prove the historical significance of the star and what it means for Jesus' birth. And then we can prove that, yes, Jesus really was born. And sometimes we can get stuck in this. We've got to prove that Jesus was really born. But what if that's still surface level? What if it's deeper than that? We could talk about how it was about the Magi coming to worship Jesus. But again, we're talking about who the Magi were, and it's very surface level. And if it's all about the Magi coming to worship Jesus, then why is there this huge dialogue about who Herod was and how Herod was going to worship Jesus but not really worship Jesus and try to kill him? It's easy to focus on the parts of the story that are less challenging to us. And we can easily proclaim it's all about Jesus. We can begin to dive in. And guys, I do this with the Bible stories that I read. Like, I dive into these things that matter and add depth and meaning, but don't necessarily impact my heart. And the story of Jesus' birth is all about impacting our hearts. And so the whole point of this entire story, when we look at everything that's involved in it in its entirety, is this. It's about seeking Jesus. Now let me explain that. You have this group of people, like we talked about earlier, that we think of as non-Christian people. When you think of a sorcerer, if I were to approach you any other place other than right here, right now in church, and I would say, tell me what you think about sorcerers, you'd be like, oh, what? You know. And you've got these sorcerers, these magicians, that grew up outside of knowing who Jesus was. They were considered outsiders. They were not Jewish. They didn't grow up learning the Old Testament. They didn't grow up hearing everything, all of the promises that God said, this man is going to come and he's going to save the world and he's going to set everything right. They didn't hear all that growing up. But they saw this star and they sought Jesus. And then you've got this king, King Herod, who was a Jew, who grew up hearing there's going to be a king to come that's going to set everything right. He grew up hearing all of the promises. He grew up hearing Jesus is going to come. God is going to send his son. It's going to be this incredible thing. And so you have this group of people that should not necessarily be seeking Jesus, who are chasing him with everything they have. And you have this person that should be seeking Jesus, knows all the right stuff, that refuses to search for him, refuses to seek him. And so the main point of this story, the question that comes back to us personally at a heart level is this. Are you seeking Jesus? Am I seeking Jesus? Now, let me tell you what I'm not asking. I'm not asking, do you read your Bible every day? I'm not asking, do you spend time in prayer every day? Because again, those are very important, but those become very surface level checklist things. I spend my quiet time reading my Bible and praying, and then I spend my time throughout my day. What I'm asking is, quiet time all day long, are you seeking Jesus? Do you seek him when you feel that urging in your heart that you need to go do something? Do you seek him when you feel that urging in your heart that you need to go talk to that person that's down the hall? Do you seek him when you feel that urging in your heart that you need to love others better, that you need to serve others, that you need to stand up for the marginalized and the rejected in your schools and in your hallways and in your families and in your circles of influence? Do you seek him when he asks you to step out into faith in something that scares you to death and you have no idea where he's leading you? You just have this urge inside of you that you need to do something. Do you seek him? Do you follow the light? Do you say, Jesus, my heart is yours, and I don't understand what you're asking, but I'm going to do it because I'm going to follow you. I'm going to seek you. I'm going to worship you. My heart is yours. And see, just like the star that led the wise men to Jesus, that led the Magi to Jesus, the light of Christmas still shows up for us today. Do we seek him? Guys, I can't tell you the amount of times I feel an urging. And sometimes I do a good job and I follow that urging. And sometimes I don't. And that is the human life. And my goal is that every single day I will get better at following the urging of Jesus. That my heart would become more and more his, that he would lead and I would see his light and I would be like, yeah, I'm going to follow that. I'm going to step where he asks me to step. I'm going to say something when he is urging me to say something. I'm going to stand up for that person that's going to be kind of hard to stand up for, but that I know they're marginalized, and I'm going to step in for them. Do we seek him? Now, we can focus on the star. We could say the reason for the season is Jesus. We could talk about who the Magi were, and all of those things are great and add depth. But if we don't get down to what the story's all about, we've missed it. And so my question for you tonight is, do you seek Jesus? Now, here's the practical challenge. This week, you are going to feel urgings of Jesus. And it's going to be weird. And it's going to be awkward. And it's going to be something that you're like, I'm not really sure about this, God. Here's what I want to encourage you to do. At least 3 times this week, step in to that space. Step in to where God is urging you to step. Seek the light of Christmas. Follow him. Allow him to impact your heart and your life at a daily, moment by moment decision level. This Christmas, let's truly seek the light. Let's follow it, and let's allow him to change our hearts. Let me pray for you. God, thank you for tonight.